The most powerful alpha in the Empire left me at the altar and came back when I was already pregnant. On my 20th birthday, a warship descended from the sky, and the man I thought would marry me stepped out like I was nothing. "I can give you anything," he said, calm, distant, "except my name." That was the moment I learned the truth. People like me don't get love. We get used. And if we're not claimed by 20, we disappear. Months later, when the war ended, I stood in the back of a military base, carrying a child I was never supposed to have. He saw me. For the first time since he left, he looked like he was breaking. "Whose child is that?" he asked. I held his gaze and answered the only truth I had left. "I don't know." He left me on my 20th birthday, knowing exactly what would happen to me. The most powerful alpha in the Empire walked away without looking back, and months later, he would return to find me carrying a child I was never supposed to have. People like to tell it differently. Cleaner. Simpler. Like a story with a clear villain and a clear mistake. But the truth isn't clean. It started with dust in the air, a line that stretched around the civil union office, and a pair of borrowed shoes that didn't quite fit. I remember staring at the door, telling myself that if I could just make it inside, if my name could exist beside his on a single document, then maybe the rest of my life would finally belong to me. "Nathaniel," he said behind me, voice low, steady. Even then, before I knew who he really was, there was something about the way he said my name that made everything else fade. I turned, trying not to stare. Sebastian Crow stood a step behind me, coat too clean for this district, posture too straight, like he didn't belong here at all. Weeks ago, I had found him half buried in metal and ash, blindfolded, bleeding, a man who remembered nothing except his name. I had no reason to bring him home. I had even less reason to keep him. But I did. "You're thinking too loudly," he said. I let out a small breath. "That's not a real thing. It is when you forget to breathe." His fingers brushed my wrist, not holding, just there, like it was natural, like he had always been there. "You've been holding your breath." I exhaled slowly, embarrassed. "It's just a line," I said. "And a form. And a stamp. And a decision," he replied. A pause. "We can leave." I shook my head immediately. "No, I can't. Not today. Not when everything depended on this." Around us, people shifted, argued, whispered. The clerks inside barely looked up anymore. On this planet, the rules were simple. If you didn't register a bond by 20, you were transferred into service. Not a job, not a choice. A system that used you until it didn't need you anymore. "We're almost there," I said. He didn't answer, but his hand stayed at my wrist, warm, steady. It made me feel safer than I should have. Just hours ago, he had been holding my hand like he didn't want to let go, like I was the only thing that mattered. I didn't know which version of him was real. "Number 147, a voice called. I looked down. 147, my chest tightened. "That's us," I said quickly, turning to him. "We go in, we sign, take the picture, and then," he asked. I hesitated. "Then we figure it out." It sounded fragile. He studied me for a moment, like he was trying to remember something important. Then he nodded. "All right." We stepped forward together. The air changed before the sky did. Conversation stopped. A cup hit the ground somewhere behind me and rolled, untouched. I felt it in my chest first, pressure, building. "Nathaniel." His voice sharpened. "Stay close." I followed his gaze upward, and the world went dark. A shadow swallowed the sun. Engines roared from above, not the streets. Wind tore through the square, dragging dust and paper into the air. People stumbled back, shielding their eyes. And then I saw it. A warship, gray, massive, impossible, descending slowly over the building. The Empire's insignia gleamed along its side. I had seen images. Broken screens. Rumors whispered in alleys. But nothing like this. "Why is it here?" someone shouted. "That's a command vessel." The hatch opened with a sharp hiss. A ramp extended. Soldiers poured out in perfect formation, armed, controlled, like they already owned the ground they walked on. And then someone broke formation. A young Omega with pale hair ran forward, straight toward us. "No," toward him. "Sebastian," he called, voice breaking as he threw himself into Sebastian's arms. "You're alive," I thought. He stopped, clinging to him like he had almost lost him. I felt Sebastian go completely still. His hand slipped from my wrist. Just like that. Gone. "Alexander," he said softly. I had never heard that tone before. He rested a hand against the Omega's back, steadying him. "I'm here." Something inside me went quiet. Soldiers formed a perimeter. One of them stepped forward and dropped to one knee. "Commander Crow," he said clearly. "High Command orders your immediate return." "Commander." The word hit harder than the engines above us. I looked at Sebastian, really looked, and suddenly everything made sense. The way he moved, the way he spoke, the way the world seemed to adjust around him. This wasn't the man I found in the ruins. This was someone who commanded warships, armies, futures. He released Alexander and turned his head toward me. Our eyes met. For a second, something flickered. Recognition. Conflict. Then it was gone, replaced by something colder. Controlled. He stepped toward me again, closing the distance, but not the way he used to. Not close enough. Nathaniel, he said. My name. But it didn't feel the same. What's happening? I asked. My voice sounded small. I hated that. I remember everything, he said. I tightened my grip on the paper in my hand. We're next, I said quickly. We just need to go inside. The wind pulled at my words, scattering them. Or maybe it was him. He walked closer, just enough for me to see the tension in his jaw. For a moment, I thought he would reach for me again. He didn't. I can arrange compensation, he said instead. Housing, credits, protection. I stared at him. That's not what I asked. I know. Silence stretched between us, filled with everything we didn't say. Everything we had shared in a different place, a different version of him. I swallowed hard. Then what are you saying? He inhaled once, controlled, like even that was deliberate. I can give you anything, he said, calmly. And then, accept my name. The world didn't shatter. Not yet. It just stopped. Behind him, Alexander watched quietly, eyes sharp. The soldiers waited. The ship hummed above us. Everything was already moving forward. I was the only one still standing still. Nathaniel Price. The clerk called impatiently from inside. If you're coming in, come in. If not, move aside. I looked at the door, at the dull light inside, at the future I thought I was about to step into. Then I looked back at him, at the man who had held me through cold nights, who had made me believe, just for a moment, that I wasn't alone. Happy birthday, I said quietly. His expression shifted, just for a second. Too late. I stepped back, out of his reach, out of the life I thought I had. The soldiers moved. The moment ended, and I didn't understand it. Not yet. Because just weeks ago he was someone else entirely. The first time I saw him, I thought he was already dead. The air still smelled like smoke when I found him, thick and metallic, clinging to the back of my throat as I picked my way through the wreckage. Whatever had crashed there wasn't meant for this part of the city. Too clean, too advanced. Its broken pieces still humming faintly like they refused to accept they were finished. People had already come and gone, stripping what they could carry. That was how things worked here. If something fell, you took what you could before someone stronger did. I almost left too. I should have. Then I saw his hand. It was half buried beneath a twisted panel, fingers still, unnaturally pale against the dark metal. I don't know why I stopped. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the way the air around him felt different, like something didn't belong. I crouched down, pushing debris aside until I could see his face. There was blood, too much of it, but his breathing was there, shallow, uneven, alive, barely. Hey, I said, even though I didn't expect a response. Can you hear me? Nothing. Up close, he didn't look like anyone from this district. His clothes were torn, but even then, I could tell they weren't cheap. His skin wasn't marked the way most people's were. No scars, no signs of years. Spent surviving. He didn't belong here, which meant one thing. Trouble. I hesitated. If I walked away, someone else would find him. Or maybe no one would. Maybe he would die right here, and by morning, there would be nothing left but stripped metal and a body no one claimed. That would have been the smarter outcome. I let out a slow breath and reached for the panel trapping his arm. It took more effort than I expected to shift it, metal grinding against metal, but eventually it gave. He didn't react when I pulled him free. Not even a sound. Great, I muttered. You're going to die, and I'm going to regret this. Still, I didn't stop. It took everything I had to drag him back. Step by step, through alleys I knew better than my own thoughts, avoiding the main roads, keeping to the shadows. If anyone saw us, they would ask questions. And questions here never ended well. By the time I reached my place, my arms were shaking. I pushed the door open with my shoulder, half carrying, half dragging him inside before locking it behind me. The room was small, bare, just enough to survive in. I laid him down on the bed, if it could be called that, and stepped back, trying to steady my breathing. You owe me, I said under my breath. If you die, I'm dragging you back out there myself. He didn't move. Of course he didn't. I grabbed what little supplies I had, water, cloth, the last of the antiseptic, and got to work. The wounds were worse than I thought. Deep cuts, bruising that ran along his ribs, a head injury that explained why he hadn't woken. Whoever, or whatever, had done this hadn't held back. What were you doing out there? I murmured as I cleaned the blood away. You don't look like someone who gets lost. His breathing hitched slightly at the touch, just enough to tell me he could feel it. Good. That meant he wasn't completely gone. I worked until my hands stopped shaking, until the blood was mostly gone, until there was nothing left to do but wait. Night fell slowly. The city never really went quiet, but it softened, the noise settling into something distant, manageable. I sat on the floor beside the bed, back against the wall, watching him. I should have slept. I didn't. At some point, his fingers moved. Just slightly. I froze. Hey, I said, leaning forward. Can you hear me? A faint sound escaped him, barely a breath. His brow tightened, like he was fighting something unseen. Then, slowly, his eyes opened. For a second, they didn't focus. Just empty. Searching. Then they landed on me. Sharp. Too sharp for someone who had just woken up. I held my breath without realizing it. You're alive, I said quietly. Try not to move. He didn't answer. His gaze stayed locked on mine, studying me like he was trying to place something that didn't fit. Do you remember your name? I asked. A pause. His lips parted, dry, barely working. Sebastian, he said, voice rough, like it hadn't been used in days. Sebastian. He frowned slightly, like even that felt incomplete. Crow. The name settled in the room, heavier than it should have been. It didn't sound like it belonged here. All right, I said, nodding slowly. Sebastian Crow. I tried to keep my tone light, like this was normal, like I hadn't just dragged a stranger out of a crash site. Do you remember anything else? Another pause, longer this time. His eyes shifted slightly, unfocused again, then back to me. No, just that. No panic. No confusion. Just absence. I exhaled slowly. That's fine, I said, even though it wasn't. You hit your head pretty hard. Memory loss isn't. Where am I? He cut in, quieter this time, but steadier. More aware. My place, I answered. You were in a crash. I found you. He went still again, processing. Then his gaze flicked around the room, taking in everything, fast, efficient. Too efficient. Even like this, something about him felt controlled, like he was holding himself together through sheer will. His eyes returned to me. Why? The question caught me off guard. Why what? Why help me? He asked. Not accusing, just direct. I hesitated. There were a dozen answers I could have given. None of them sounded convincing. You were alive, I said finally. That seemed like a good enough reason. He watched me for a moment longer, like he was weighing that answer against something only he could see. Then, slowly, he nodded. Thank you. It was simple, quiet, but it landed heavier than I expected. I pushed myself to my feet, breaking eye contact before it got uncomfortable. Don't thank me yet, I muttered. You're not out of it. I grabbed a cup of water and set it beside him. You need to rest. And you're not leaving until you can walk without collapsing. He didn't argue. That, more than anything, should have worried me. Instead, he just watched me, that same steady gaze, like he had already decided something about me I didn't understand yet. I turned away, pretending not to notice. Outside, the city carried on like nothing had changed. Inside, everything had. I didn't know it then, but that was the moment my life stopped being mine. He should have left the next day. That was the rule here. No one stayed longer than they had to. But he didn't. When I woke up the morning after he said his name, Sebastian was still there, exactly where I had left him, eyes open, watching the ceiling like he had been awake the entire night. You're supposed to be resting, I muttered, setting a dented cup of water beside him. I am, he replied without looking at me. That's not what resting looks like. It is when you don't trust where you are. I paused. That was fair. Then you can leave, I said, sharper than I meant to. Door's right there. He turned his head then, finally looking at me. Not defensive, not offended, just studying. I can't walk, he said. Not yet. I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it again. He was right, and he knew it. I let out a quiet breath and turned away, busying myself with the small shelf in the corner, if it could be called that. A few bottles, dried leaves, powdered scraps, things most people would have thrown away. What is that? He asked. Nothing you need to worry about. You used it on me. Of course he noticed. It's not proper medicine, I said. Just something I learned to mix. Helps with pain. Keeps wounds from getting worse. He watched me crush a dried stem between my fingers, dropping it into a chipped bowl. You made it. There's no one else who's going to do it for me, I replied. I added water, stirring slowly until the mixture darkened. Drink, I said, handing it to him. He didn't hesitate. That should have worried me. People here didn't trust anything they didn't see made from start to finish. But he just took it and drank, like he had already decided I wasn't a threat. Or like he simply didn't care if I was. The next few days blurred together. He healed faster than he should have. That was the first thing I noticed. The second was the way he watched everything. Not like someone learning. Like someone remembering. On the third day, he was already standing. Unsteady but upright. You shouldn't be up, I said, crossing the room quickly. You're going to tear something open again. I won't. He took a step. Stopped. Adjusted his balance like he was recalibrating himself. Then took another. I reached out without thinking, grabbing his arm. His skin was warm. Too warm. He glanced down at my hand. Then back at me. You're going to fall, I said. Then stay close, he replied. I froze for half a second. Then let go like I had touched something I shouldn't. Don't get used to it, I muttered. I'm not carrying you again. Outside, the district didn't change. It never did. People still fought over scraps. Still watched each other like predators waiting for weakness. One afternoon, I came back with less than I should have. A bruised rib and a cut along my arm where someone's knife had slipped too close. I shut the door behind me, breathing harder than I wanted to admit. You're bleeding, Sebastian said immediately. I scoffed. It's nothing. He was already moving toward me, faster than he should have been able to. Sit. I said it's fine. Sit. The tone changed. Not louder. Just final. I sat. I didn't even realize I was going to until I was already on the edge of the bed. He knelt in front of me, hands steady as he took my arm, turning it slightly to examine the cut. You fought for this, he said, glancing at the small bundle I had dropped on the table. Food. Not much, but enough. That's how it works, I replied. You don't fight, you don't eat. His jaw tightened slightly. Just a flicker. You shouldn't have to. I let out a quiet laugh. That's not how this place works. He didn't answer, just reached for the same mixture I had given him days ago, applying it carefully to my arm. His touch was precise, controlled, like he had done this before. You said this wasn't proper medicine, he said. It works. It does. He tied the cloth tighter than necessary. I hissed. That hurts. Good, he said. You'll remember next time. I stared at him, then shook my head. You're weird. He almost smiled. Almost. That evening, the old woman from 2 doors down knocked on my wall. Twice, then once. Her usual signal. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. You're keeping someone, she said without greeting. I stiffened. You hear everything, don't you? I hear enough. Her eyes flicked past me toward the door. He's not from here. No, then he's trouble. I figured that out already. She studied me for a moment, then sighed softly. You're almost 20. The words settled heavier than they should have. I know. You don't have much time. I looked away. I know. Her voice softened slightly. If he's unattached, you should consider it. I let out a sharp breath. He's not. I stopped. Because I didn't know what he was. He won't stay, I said instead. None of them do. She didn't argue, just nodded slowly. Then don't wait too long, she said. The system doesn't care about what you want. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. That night, I sat across from Sebastian, watching him as he adjusted the bandage along his ribs. You're healing fast, I said. Faster than you should. He didn't look up. Is that a problem? It is if people notice. He nodded once, like he had already considered that. Silence stretched between us. Then, before I could stop myself, when you're better, you'll leave, right? He paused, just for a second, then continued tying the bandage. Is that what you want? It's what makes sense. He looked at me then. Really looked. You don't always choose what makes sense. My chest tightened slightly. No, I said. I don't. The next morning, he was gone. The door was still locked. The room still intact. But he was gone. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the empty space where he had been. Of course he left. Of course he did. I told myself that twice. Maybe 3 times. Then I noticed the knife missing from the table. And the way the silence felt different. He came back at sunset. There was blood on him. Not his. His clothes were torn again, but his posture, his stance, was something else entirely. Not injured. Not cautious. Dangerous. I didn't ask. He didn't explain. He just walked past me, setting something on the table. More food than I had seen in days. You went back? I said quietly. Yes. Why? He glanced at me, expression unreadable. Because they tried to kill me. The way he said it, calm, certain, sent something cold down my spine. And now? I asked. They won't try again. I didn't ask what he had done. I didn't want to know. That night, the air changed. I felt it before I understood it. The tension, The heat. Sebastian was standing near the window, breathing slower than usual, like he was holding something back. Are you hurt again? I asked, stepping closer. No, his voice was tight, controlled in a way that didn't feel natural. Then what? He turned toward me. And for the first time, I saw it. Not the man I had been taking care of. Not the one who watched me quietly from across the room. Something else. Raw. Uncontrolled. Don't come closer, he said. I stopped anyway. What's wrong? His hands curled slightly at his sides. I said don't. He cut himself off, breath catching. Then, softer, rougher, Nathaniel, leave. I should have listened. I didn't. You're not okay, I said, stepping closer anyway. I'm not leaving you like this. His control snapped in the space between one breath and the next. Not violent. Not reckless. Just gone. He reached for me like it was instinct, pulling me in before I could react. His hand was warm, too warm, against my skin. Sebastian, stay, he said, voice low, almost unrecognizable. And this time, I did. You should have left. You knew at the moment he told you to. Don't come closer, Sebastian said, voice low and frayed, like something inside him was already breaking. You still stepped forward. It wasn't just heat anymore. It was pressure, thick, suffocating, pressing into your lungs, your pulse, your thoughts. Something instinctive. Something that made it harder to think about walking away. This wasn't a wounded stranger anymore. This was an alpha losing control. You knew it. And you stayed anyway. You should have run. You didn't. Because this might be your only chance. Because he had come back. Because he had stood between you and the world outside and didn't hesitate. Because for the first time, someone needed you. Nathaniel. He said your name like a warning, like a last line he was trying not to cross. You didn't step back. I'm not leaving, you said quietly. That was it. The last thread snapped. He moved fast, too fast. 1 second there was space between you, the next there wasn't. His hand caught your arm, then your shoulder, pulling you in with a force that wasn't careless, but wasn't gentle either. Like instinct had taken over where control failed. You don't understand, he said, breath uneven. Too close now. I might. Then don't stop. You cut in, before you could think better of it. The air shifted. His grip tightened. Not enough to hurt, but enough to keep you there. Enough to make it clear you weren't going anywhere. Nathaniel, your name again. Lower this time. Rougher. You didn't move. Didn't resist. Didn't give him a reason to stop. And that was all it took. Whatever restraint he had left broke in that moment. Not into chaos, but into something sharper, more focused. Controlled in the way something dangerous is controlled. His hands weren't hesitant anymore. They held you firmly, anchoring you in place, like you were the only thing keeping him grounded. His breathing was uneven, brushing against your skin, hot and urgent, pulling you into the same rhythm whether you meant to follow or not. You felt it in your chest, in your pulse, in the way your thoughts blurred at the edges. You could have pushed him away. Maybe. You didn't. Because part of you understood exactly what this was. Not just instinct, not just need, but something deeper, something raw enough that it scared you and pulled you closer at the same time. He wasn't just holding you. He was holding on. And you let him. Time didn't move the way it should have after that. It stretched, fractured, disappeared into heat. And breath and the weight of his presence pressing in from every direction. There was no space to think, only to feel, to stay, to endure, to answer without words. He never let you go, not even for a second. Even when his control slipped, even when his strength pressed too close to the edge, there was still something deliberate in the way he kept you there. Like losing you was the one thing he refused to risk. By the time the tension finally broke, it didn't end all at once. It faded slowly, like something burning itself out. His breathing slowed. His grip loosened, but didn't release. You stayed where you were, your body heavy, your thoughts still catching up, the air around you thick and quiet again. He rested his forehead against you, still too close, still holding on. Don't leave, he said, voice hoarse now, stripped of everything except that one request. Not instinct anymore. Not command. Just him. You closed your eyes for a second. You should have said no. You didn't. I'm not going anywhere. That was enough. His hold eased just slightly, but he didn't let go. Not completely. Not like he trusted it would last. You could feel the aftermath in your body, the ache, the strain, the proof that he had crossed a line he couldn't fully control. And deeper than that, something else settled in. He needed you. Not wanted. Needed. And for someone like you, that was more dangerous than anything else. That night didn't feel like something that happened. It felt like something that claimed you. Because in that moment, you believed he chose you. And you didn't realize yet how wrong that belief would be. It didn't end that night. That was the first thing I realized. Whatever had taken over him, it didn't burn out. It lingered. The next morning, he didn't leave my side. Not even for a moment. The heat hadn't broken. If anything, it had settled deeper under his skin, quieter, but more dangerous. He stayed close. Too close. Like distance itself made something in him unstable. Every time I tried to move away, even just a step, his hand would find me again, my wrist, my arm, my shoulder, pulling me back without a word. Stay, he would murmur, voice still rough from the night before. And I stayed. I don't know when it stopped being a choice. Maybe it never was. The days blurred together after that. Heat, exhaustion, silence, and then those brief moments in between, when everything slowed down just enough for me to see him again. The real him. Or at least, the version of him that existed when the storm eased. In those moments, he was different. Gentle in a way that didn't match anything else about him. Careful, like he was trying to make up for something he couldn't control. You're hurt, he said once, his fingers hovering near my shoulder, not quite touching at first. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He could see it. The strain, the marks his own strength had left behind. His jaw tightened slightly. I didn't mean to. I know. I cut in quietly. And I did. That was the problem. I understood too well. He exhaled slowly, then moved closer again, but this time, slower. Deliberate. Like he was asking permission without saying it out loud. When he touched me, it was different. Lighter. Controlled. As if he was holding himself back with everything he had. Does it hurt? He asked. I hesitated, then nodded. Just a little. He didn't pull away. Instead, his hand stayed there, warm, steady, grounding, not taking. That was the part that confused me the most. The contrast. One moment, he was something I couldn't stop. The next, he was someone who couldn't stop checking if I was okay. And somewhere in between, I stopped being afraid. Because no matter how far he went, no matter how much control he lost, he never left. Not once. At night, when the worst of it passed, he would pull me close. Not with force this time, but with something quieter. His arms around me, his face pressed into the space near my neck, breathing slow, steady, like he needed that closeness to stay anchored. Stay here, he would say, half asleep, voice low and unguarded. I'm here, I would answer. And for a few hours, everything felt simple. Like this was what it meant to belong somewhere. Like I mattered. 7 days. That was how long it lasted. 7 days of losing control. 7 days of holding on. By the end of it, I was exhausted in a way I didn't have words for. My body ached. My thoughts felt slow. But I wasn't empty. If anything, I felt full. Of something dangerous. Something I didn't want to name. When the heat finally broke, it was sudden. Like a switch had been flipped. One moment, he was still close, still holding on to me. The next, his breathing steadied completely. His body went still. And for the first time in days, he let go. I felt it immediately. The absence. The space. He pulled back just enough to look at me properly, like he was seeing me clearly for the first time since it started. His expression didn't change much, but something in his eyes did. Awareness. Control. Distance. You should rest, he said. Just like that. Like none of it had happened. I sat there, not moving. That's it. I asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. His gaze lingered on me for a second longer than necessary. Then he looked away. You're injured, he said instead. Practical. Detached. I almost laughed. But I didn't. Because even then, he still didn't leave. The days after were quieter. Too quiet. He kept his distance at first, but not completely. He still stayed. Still brought food. Still checked my wounds. Even if his touch was more controlled now. More careful. Like he was afraid of crossing a line he couldn't take back. But at night, it was different. He would move closer again. Not like before. Not instinct. Just habit. His arm around me. His presence there, solid and real. His face resting near my neck, like that was where he belonged. Like he didn't even realize he was doing it. And I let him. Every time. Because even if he didn't say it, he still needed me. And that was enough to make me stay. A few days later, when the last of the heat had faded completely, I asked him. I didn't plan to. It just came out. Do you know what happens when I turn 20? He didn't look up right away. No, of course he didn't. I let out a quiet breath. If I'm not bonded, they take me. That got his attention. His eyes lifted to mine, sharper now. Take you where? Into the system. I held his gaze. There's no choice. Silence stretched between us. Heavy. Measured. He didn't interrupt. Didn't dismiss it. Just listened. So I kept going. There's a way around it, I said. If I register a bond before then, I stay. He was still watching me. Too closely. And I hesitated. For the first time since this started, I wasn't sure of myself. I'm not asking you to stay, I said carefully. Not if you don't want to. That part mattered. I needed it to matter. But if you did, I would respect that. A pause. Then, would you be willing to register with me? The question hung there. Simple. But not really. He didn't answer immediately. And for some reason, that hurt more than anything else had. But I didn't look away. I didn't take it back. Because this time, it had to be his choice. And I needed to know if I had ever really been one. The memory didn't fade. It broke. 1 second, I could still feel him, his hands, his breath, the weight of something that had felt real. The next, white light, cold air, a voice I didn't know. Move. A hand shoved my shoulder. Not hard, just enough to remind me where I was. I blinked once, twice. The room snapped into focus, clean, bright, controlled. Nothing like before. Nothing like him. Keep the line moving. I stepped forward. 1 step, then another. Like my body had already learned what to do without asking me first. Lines were painted on the floor. Boxes. Boundaries. Everyone stayed inside them. No one spoke unless spoken to. I looked around. Omegas. All of them. Some stared at the ground. Some stared at nothing. One of them was shaking, just slightly, like they were trying to hide it. Another was pulled out of line 2 rows ahead of me. No warning. No explanation. Just a hand on their arm and they were gone. No struggle. No sound. That was the worst part. They already knew it didn't matter. Name. I turned. A man in uniform stood behind a terminal, eyes fixed on the screen, not on me. Nathaniel Price. My voice sounded distant. Age. 19. His fingers paused, just a fraction of a second. Enough to register. Then continued. Unbonded. Not a question. I didn't answer. The word hung there anyway. Final. I tightened my grip on nothing, fingers curling slightly at my side. He stayed. The thought cut through everything else. He stayed. Through all of it. And still he left. Assigned to temporary housing. A wait evaluation. No explanation. No choice. Just the next step. Move. I moved. The corridor stretched too long, too white, too quiet. Doors lined both sides, identical, numbered, controlled. Everything here was controlled. A door opened as I passed. For a second, just a second, I saw inside. Someone on their knees. 2 hands holding them still. A machine lowering slowly. The door shut before I could see more. I kept walking. My chest felt tight. Not fear. Not exactly. Something colder. The room they gave me was smaller than the one I had before. Cleaner. Emptier. A bed. A sink. No window. The door locked behind me with a soft click that sounded louder than it should have. I stood there, then sat down slowly. My body still ached. That hadn't gone away. The strain. The reminder. Proof of something I wasn't supposed to forget, but couldn't hold on to either. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, staring at the floor. He stayed. Through everything. And still, he left. A quiet sound escaped me. Not quite a laugh. Not quite anything else. Of course, I murmured. It made sense now. Of course he would. I pushed myself up and crossed to the sink. The water was cold. Too clean. I splashed it onto my face, letting it pull me back into something solid. This was real. This place. This system. Not him. Not those 7 days. Not the way he held me like I mattered. I looked up at my reflection. Pale. Tired. Different. Not enough. The thought came without warning. Not enough to be chosen. The door unlocked. I turned. Evaluation, the guard said. No explanation. I stepped forward. Again. Because that was all there was left to do. The corridor felt colder this time. I didn't look into the rooms as we passed. I didn't need to. I had already seen enough. I was pushed into a bright room. Brighter than before. A machine hummed softly in the corner, lights blinking in steady rhythm. Stand there. I did. Sensors activated immediately. Scanning. Measuring. Recording. I forced myself to stay still. To not react. Voices spoke behind me. Clinical. Detached. Irregular, one said. Explain. Hormonal response inconsistent. Gland. Development incomplete. A pause. Then defective. The word hit. Harder than anything else so far. I didn't move. Didn't react. Not entirely, the first voice replied. But below standard. Below standard. Not enough. Not enough to be wanted. Not enough to be chosen. Maybe he never chose me. The thought settled quietly this time. No shock. No anger. Just clarity. Maybe I just stayed. The machine powered down. Mark for restricted assignment. The second voice said. Lower priority pairing. Pairing. I almost smiled. If they knew. Take him back. The guard stepped forward again. I walked out without hesitation. The corridor swallowed me whole once more. Step by step. Controlled. Silent. Predictable. But something had shifted. Not outside. Inside. Because for the first time since I got here, I understood. No one was coming for me. Not him. Not anyone. I stopped at the threshold of my room when the door opened. Just for a second. Then stepped inside. The lock clicked behind me. Final. I exhaled slowly, steadying myself. And this time, I didn't think about him again. Because if I wanted to survive this place, I had to stop waiting. By the second day, I understood the rules. No one explained them. You learned by watching who disappeared. Line up. The door opened. We moved immediately. No hesitation. No sound. Rows of Omegas stood inside painted lines, shoulders straight, eyes forward. You stayed inside your line. You didn't speak. You didn't react. That was rule 1. Rule 2. You moved when told. The line advanced. Slow. Controlled. A hand touched the Omega 2 places ahead of me. You. Step out. He froze. Half a second. That was enough. The grip tightened. He tried to pull back. Please. The second guard stepped in. No shouting. Just force. Clean. Efficient. He folded, dragged out of line like it was already decided. No one moved. No one looked. I kept my eyes forward. Rule 3. If it's not you, it's not your problem. Next. My turn. I stepped forward without pause. The officer scanned my band, then my face. His gaze lingered. Not interest. Assessment. Restricted classification, he said. Follow the markers. Lower priority. I didn't react. That was. Rule 4. Never give them anything to read. The side corridor was narrower. Quieter. That made it worse. Doors opened and closed without warning. People went in. Fewer came out. We stopped at an intersection. Through the glass wall ahead, I saw it for the first time. Training yard. No deployment staging. Alphas in formation. Armed. Controlled. And Omegas. Not beside them. In front. A line of them. Thinner, smaller, pushed forward like a living shield. One stumbled. A guard shoved him back into place. Stabilize them. Someone barked. We move in 2 minutes. No one asked if they could. They weren't asked. They were used. Rule 5. Your body is a function. If it's useful, it gets used. If not, it gets moved. Keep walking. I did. The door at the end had no number. That minute mattered. Inside. Cold air hit first. Then the table. Restraints. Not hidden. Never hidden. They didn't need to be. Fear wasn't part of the system. Predictability was. Stand there. I stood. Lights snapped on overhead. Too bright. A machine hummed to life. Restricted classification confirmed. A voice said. Papers shifted. Test tolerance. I kept my breathing steady. Rule 6. Control your body before they do. Prior bonding. A pause. A flicker of memory. His voice. His hands. The way he said stay like it meant something. I cut it off. No, the lie landed flat. Easy. Noted. A longer pause. Then, return him. That was it. No test. No interest. I understood immediately. Not valuable enough to be used. Not useless enough to discard. Lower priority. The guard stepped aside. I walked out. The corridor swallowed everything again. Same walls. Same silence. But I was seeing it now. Doors. Timing. Patterns. Who got taken? Who didn't? Why? Survival wasn't about strength here. It was about staying just valuable enough. And just invisible enough. The guard stopped at my room. The door opened. I stepped inside. The lock clicked behind me. Final. I leaned back against it for a second. Eyes closed. The image from the glass wall didn't leave. Omegas at the front. Pushed forward. Not chosen. Positioned. Used. A buffer between power and consequence. I exhaled slowly. No one was coming for me. Not him. Not anyone. That part hadn't changed. But something else had. I wasn't waiting anymore. And in a place like this, that was the most dangerous thing I could become. The sound cut through the room. Sharp. Wrong. Not controlled. Not planned. I looked up. The reinforced doors slammed open and a group of alphas was rushed in. Not in formation. Not steady. One of them was at the center, supported on both sides, blood soaking through his uniform, dark and spreading fast. Everything shifted around him. Guards moved quicker. Voices dropped. Space cleared without command. That was the first sign. The second, no one said his name. They didn't need to. Stabilize him. Someone snapped. Urgent now. Not routine. The Omega assigned their froze. Hands hovering. Useless. Too slow. The Alpha jerked violently, breaking one guard's grip for half a second. The tray hit the ground. Metal scattered. No one moved fast enough. I did. I crossed the floor without thinking, dropped to one knee, hands already sorting through the fallen instruments. Not everything, just what mattered. Hold him, I said. My voice cut clean through the noise. The guards tightened their grip. I leaned in. Deep laceration. Heavy bleeding. Not fatal yet, but close. Pressure first. I grabbed the nearest workable compound. Not ideal, but enough. It had to be. What are you doing? A guard snapped behind me. I ignored him. Pressed down. Firm, controlled. The Alpha reacted instantly. A sharp, violent movement, faster than expected. His hand caught my arm before I could pull back. Hard. Too hard. Pain shot up my wrist as his grip locked. Instinctive, unfiltered. My balance shifted. I nearly lost the pressure point. Hold him. I snapped, sharper this time. The guards forced him down again, but not before his grip tightened once more. Reflex, not intention. Something shifted under my skin. Not just pain. Impact. I didn't look at it. Didn't have time. I forced my hand steady again, reapplying pressure, adjusting the angle. Focus. Bleeding first. Everything else later. The Alpha's breathing hitched, then slowed slightly, tension dropping just enough for control to return. Good. Still conscious. Still fighting. That meant he wasn't gone yet. Don't let him move, I said, voice lower now, but no less firm. The Omega beside me finally moved. Too late to help. Just in time not to make it worse. Blood slowed. Not stopped. But enough. Enough to keep him alive. I stepped back half an inch, just enough to assess. That was when I felt it. Warmth along my arm. Wrong. I glanced down briefly. A thin line of red where his grip had broken skin. Not deep, but not nothing. I ignored it. Looked back up. And met his eyes. Clear. Focused. Even through pain. He was aware. Watching. Not the guards. Not the room. Me. His grip loosened. Just slightly. Enough to register control returning. That lasted a second. Then footsteps cut in. Fast, late. A man in a white coat pushed through the guards. Status? He demanded. Stabilized, someone answered. By him. The doctor's eyes snapped to me, then to the wound, then back again. He moved in, checking my work. Pressure, placement, compound. His gaze flicked once to my arm. Not missed. Not ignored. Registered. Good call, he said under his breath. Then louder. Get him to surgical. Now. The guards moved immediately. Careful this time. Controlled. As they lifted him, the Alpha's gaze shifted again, brief, deliberate. It dropped, not to my face. To my arm. The blood. Then back to my eyes. Recognition. Then gone. He didn't resist after that. The doctor straightened, turning fully toward me. You, he said. Not asking. Deciding. Where did you learn that? I held his gaze. Enough, I answered. He studied me for a second longer. Then nodded once. You're wasted out here. A beat. Then, medical rotation. Effective immediately. The guard stiffened. He's restricted class. Then restrict him where he's useful. The doctor cut in. Silence. Then, yes, sir. I didn't move right away. My arm still throbbed. Sharp now that everything else had settled. I flexed my fingers once. Functional. That was enough. Across the room, they were already moving him out. Stabilized. Alive. And just before the door closed, I saw it again. His gaze, steady even through everything, locking onto me one last time. Not accidental this time. Intentional. I looked away first. Rule 1. Don't stand out. Too late for that. Something had changed. Not just in the system. In the way I existed inside it. I wasn't invisible anymore. And now neither was he. Medical moved fast. Watch, the doctor said once. Then didn't repeat it. I didn't need him to. 1 case. 2. By the 3rd, he stepped back and let me finish. You'll stay, he said. That was all. No praise. Just a decision. I nodded. That was enough. The doors opened behind me. Not rushed. Controlled. But the room still shifted, subtle, instinctive. I turned. He stepped in. Different from before. Still steady. Still composed. But not distant. Not sharp. Present. His gaze moved once across the room. Quick, efficient, then stopped. On me. Recognition came immediately. Not delayed. Not uncertain. Clear. He remembered. I held his gaze for a second before looking away. Habit. Too late for that now. You shouldn't be here yet, the doctor said. The man, Julian, exhaled softly. I'll be quick, he replied. Not defensive. Almost casual. His attention returned to me. Slower this time. Intentional. His eyes dropped to my arm. The bandage. the faint stain that hadn't fully set. His expression changed immediately. Real. Unhidden. You're hurt, he said. I followed his gaze, then looked back at him. It's nothing. He frowned slightly. It didn't look like nothing. A pause. Then he stepped closer. Not imposing. Not pushing. Just enough to see clearly. Did I do that? He asked. Quiet. Direct. Not as a superior. As someone who needed to know. I froze for half a second. Not because of the question. Because of the way he asked it. No distance. No authority. Just concern. You were trying not to die, I said. His shoulders eased, just slightly. Not relief. Not entirely. Still, he said. His gaze lingered on my arm. Longer than necessary. You shouldn't have been the one handling that. That landed differently. Not blame. Protection. I didn't answer. The doctor stepped in. He stabilized you, he said. He's being reassigned to medical. Silence. Then Julian looked at me again. Fully this time. No hesitation. No distance. I remember, he said. Simple. Certain. His gaze held mine. A second too long to be casual. You kept me alive. The words were steady. No exaggeration. No drama. Just truth. Something in my chest tightened. Unexpected. Sharp. No one had said that to me before. Thank you, he added. Not formal. Not forced. Meant. I didn't know what to do with that. I stayed quiet. His expression softened, just slightly, then settled into something more deliberate. A decision. Then I owe you, he said. Not loud, but absolute. The room stilled, not because of volume, because of meaning. I'll make it right, he continued. Properly. Not a vague promise. Not politeness. A commitment. My instinct was to shut it down. You don't. I do, he cut in. Not harsh. Just certain. His gaze didn't leave mine. I don't forget debts. A pause. Then, quieter. Especially ones like this. The doctor cleared his throat, stepping in before it stretched further. He stays here, he said. Julian nodded once. Good. His attention shifted back to me, softer again, but no less focused. Get that treated, he said, glancing at my arm. That's not optional. Not a command. But not something I could ignore either. I hesitated. Then, okay. That seemed to satisfy him. He nodded once, then turned to leave. Halfway to the door, he stopped. Just for a second. Look back. Nathaniel, he said. Not asking. Remembering. Yes. He repeated it under his breath, like he was fixing it in place. I'll find you again, he said. Simple. No pressure. Just certainty. Then he left. The room didn't return to normal immediately. Not for me. I stood there, hands steady, expression unchanged. But something had shifted. Not in the system. In me. Because for the first time since I got here, someone didn't just see me. They chose to remember me. And worse. I wasn't sure I wanted to be forgotten. Medical settled into rhythm, but it never slowed. Not here. Watch, the doctor had said once. That was all it took. By the third case, he stepped back. By the fifth, he stopped speaking entirely. I didn't need him to. I moved where I was needed. Prepped before being asked. Adjusted before being corrected. It wasn't effort anymore. It was instinct. Meals came on time now. Better portions. Cleaner trays. No one explained it. They didn't have to. Value changed things here. Quietly. Efficiently. I worked. That was enough. Or it should have been. You're skipping breaks again. I didn't look up immediately. His voice carried differently. Steady. Familiar now in a way that didn't make sense. I'm not skipping, I said, finishing the wrap before tying it off. I'm working. Same thing. I glanced over. Julian leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed loosely, like he had all the time in the world. His gaze was already on me. Not scanning. Not assessing. Just there. Eat, he added, nodding toward the tray beside him. Better food. Of course. I exhaled slowly. I didn't ask for that. I know. He pushed off the frame and stepped closer. Easy. Unforced. I did. A pause. Then, you're easier to deal with when you're not running on nothing. I almost ignored it. Almost. That sounds like a complaint. Observation. The corner of his mouth lifted. And a solution. I hesitated. Then reached for the tray. Thank you. You're welcome. He didn't leave. He never did. If he had time, he stayed. If he didn't, he still showed up anyway. Always with something. Food. Supplies. Or words that stayed longer than they should have. You're distracting, he said suddenly. I froze for half a second. Excuse me. You heard me. His tone was light. Too light for the way his gaze stayed on me. You work like you're the only one here. Makes it hard not to watch. I turned back to my work. Then don't. A pause. I could feel it, him not moving. Not backing off. Not an option, he said quietly. My hand stilled for a fraction of a second before I forced it steady again. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The room carried on around us. Until it didn't. So that's him. The voice came from behind me. Loud enough to carry. I didn't turn. Julian's little miracle. The man continued, stepping closer. Doesn't look like much. I kept working. Measured. Precise. All that fuss over a defective Omega, he added, voice edged now. Pretty, though. I'll give you that. Too close. Shame it's wasted here, he went on. Someone like you should be out with the troops. At least you'd be useful for something. My grip tightened, just slightly. Not enough to show. Enough to act. I adjusted the pressure on his wound. Directly over the raw edge. He sucked in a sharp breath. What the? Hold still, I said calm. Unless you want it worse. I pressed again. Controlled. Precise. Pain, but not damage. He tensed. Anger replacing it fast. You think you can? His hand came up. Fast. Instinct. I didn't move. I didn't need to. Watch your mouth. Julian's voice cut in, low even. Dangerous in a way that didn't need volume. The man froze. Not because he wanted to. Because he understood. Julian stepped in. Not between us, but close enough that the distance mattered. His gaze didn't leave the other alpha. He's working, Julian said. Calm. Final. So are you. The man snapped, weaker now. Then act like it. Silence stretched. Tight. Then snapped. The man scoffed, pulling back. Didn't think you were the type, he muttered. Picking up strays. Julian didn't react. Not visibly. That was worse. You're dismissed. No emphasis. No threat. Just certainty. The man hesitated. Then turned and left. The room exhaled. I finished the dressing. Clean. Efficient. Only then did I step back. You didn't have to do that, I said. Julian's attention shifted immediately. Softer. He shouldn't have said it. People say things. Not to you. The answer came too fast to be casual. I looked at him. He didn't look away. Not this time. Something in my chest tightened. Sharp, unfamiliar. You can't control that, I said. I don't need to, he replied. A beat. Then, I just need to be there when it happens. I looked away first. Of course I did. You'll get in trouble. A soft breath left him, almost a laugh. I've been in trouble before. Not like this. I met his gaze again. Fighting in the ranks gets you punished. He stilled slightly. You're worried about me? The question was light, but not careless. I hesitated. Then, I don't want to lose a capable patient over something stupid. His expression shifted. Warmer. More than before. Good, he said quietly. Then I won't do anything stupid. A pause. Then, for now. I almost smiled. Didn't. You should go, I said. You're not supposed to stay here this long. I know. He didn't move. Then why are you still here? He held my gaze. No hesitation. Because you are. The answer landed harder than it should have. I looked away again. He let the silence settle. Then, you're not defective. I stilled. Just for a second. Don't let them decide that for you. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Not to that. He turned to leave. Halfway to the door, he paused. And for the record, he added, glancing back, I didn't leave home to babysit idiots like him. I raised an eyebrow slightly. No, a faint breath. My family already picked who I was supposed to marry. Casual. Too casual. I didn't agree. That told me enough. So you ran. I chose. His gaze met mine again. Steady. Certain. Then I kept winning. That I believed. Your high command, I said. He shrugged. High enough. A small pause. Then, low enough to keep coming back here. To me. He didn't say it. He didn't need to. I didn't answer. He nodded once, like that was enough. Then he left. The room moved again. Sound returned. Work resumed. But something had shifted. Not in the system. In me. Because somewhere between the work, the words, and the way he stayed, I stopped feeling like something the system was using, and started feeling like something someone had chosen. And that was far more dangerous than anything this place could do to me. Something shifted before I realized it. Not outside. Not in the system. In me. I started noticing when he wasn't there. That was the first mistake. It wasn't obvious at first. Just small things. The doorway stayed empty longer than it should have. The tray came from someone else. The silence felt different. Then he would appear again, like nothing had changed, and everything settled back into place. I didn't question it. I should have. You're thinking too much again. I didn't look up. I'm working. You always say that. He stepped in, quieter this time. Not making a show of it. Just coming closer. I didn't move away. That was new. You're getting better, he said, watching my hands. Faster. That's the point. Not just that. I felt his gaze linger. Longer than before. You don't hesitate. Anymore. I didn't answer. Because he wasn't wrong. That place before, he added, quieter now. It didn't break you. My hand paused, just for a second. Then continued. It tried. A small silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable. Not anymore. Good, he said finally. Because I don't think I'd like you as much if it had. I froze. Just slightly. You shouldn't say things like that. Why not? I turned then. He was closer than I expected. Not touching. Not yet. But close enough that it mattered. Because you don't mean them. He didn't look away. Not this time. I do. The words landed too easily. Too steady. You're just not used to hearing them. Something tightened in my chest. I looked away first. Of course I did. Julian, Nathaniel. My name and his voice felt different. Slower. Deliberate. I didn't move. I like you, he said. Simple. Direct. No hesitation. I know this isn't a place where that's supposed to matter. A small breath. But it does. To me. Silence stretched. My mind tried to catch up, but my body had already reacted. Pulse uneven. Breath just slightly off. This wasn't supposed to happen here. Not like this. You don't have to say anything, he added, softer now. Not yet. That helped. A little. I nodded once. That was all I could manage. He seemed to understand. He always did. And for the first time, I didn't push him away. That was the second mistake. It happened fast. Too fast. A stretcher rushed past us, the medic calling for space. Instinct took over. I moved before thinking, stepping in to assist. Blood loss. Severe. The kind that didn't wait. I reached for the kit. Then everything tilted. Just slightly. I steadied myself. Ignored it. Focus. Not now. Nathaniel. I didn't answer. My hands were already moving. Pressure. Seal. Stabilize. Same as always. But something was wrong. My vision blurred at the edges. My grip slipped. Just for a second. Enough. Stop. Julian's voice cut in. Close now. Too close. I didn't listen. I couldn't. Nathaniel. Stronger this time. I blinked hard, forcing focus back. Then the floor dropped out from under me. The next thing I knew, I was sitting. Someone was holding my shoulders. Voices blurred. Together. Light too bright. He's pale. Pulse is off. Get him to the table. I tried to push myself up. I'm fine. You're not, Julian snapped. Not angry. Just afraid. That stopped me. I went still. The doctor arrived seconds later. Late. But fast enough. What happened? He collapsed, someone answered. He was working. Of course he was, the doctor muttered, already checking vitals. His hand paused. Just slightly. Then moved again. Slower this time. More deliberate. Run a scan. The machine hummed to life. I stared at the ceiling, breathing steady again, but something in the room had changed. The silence. Heavier now. Waiting. The doctor's expression shifted as he read the results. Not confusion. Not surprise. Recognition. Then he looked at me. Nathaniel. I turned my head slightly. How far along? The question didn't make sense. Not at first. What? Approximately 5 months, he said. Calm. Too calm. The room went completely still. I didn't breathe. That's not. It is, he cut in gently. You're pregnant. The word hit harder than anything else had since I got here. Everything in me went cold. 5 months. That wasn't possible. I would have known. I should have. You're underweight, the doctor continued. Condition masked it. Hormonal irregularity delayed detection. His voice faded into the background. My mind had already gone somewhere else. Back. To him. To that night. To everything I hadn't allowed myself to think about since. Who? Julian's voice cut through it all. Sharp. Controlled. Dangerous in a way I hadn't heard from him before. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Who did this to you? He repeated, stepping closer. Not touching, but close enough to feel it. I shook my head. It's not. Did he know? His jaw tightened. Did he just leave you here like this? It wasn't like that. My voice came out quieter than I wanted. Then what was it? I didn't answer. Because there was no answer he would accept. Nathaniel. Softer this time. But no less intense. I looked away. It doesn't matter. Silence. Heavy. Then, it matters to me. That broke something. Just a little. I exhaled slowly. It was a mistake, I said. An accident. The words. Felt wrong. Incomplete. But they were the only ones I could give. We weren't anything. I forced myself to meet his gaze. We can't be. A pause. Then, quieter. We never could. He didn't look away. Not once. Not even after that. Then he's an idiot. The bluntness caught me off guard. Julian, he is, he repeated. No hesitation. Because if he left you to deal with this alone, his voice lowered slightly, then he doesn't deserve either of you. Something tightened in my chest again. Worse this time. You don't understand. Then help me understand. I shook my head. I can't. Silence fell again. But it wasn't empty. It was building. Then he stepped closer. This time, he did reach out, slow, careful, like he was giving me time to pull away. I didn't. His hand closed gently around mine. Warm. Steady. Then listen instead, he said quietly. I looked at him. Really looked this time. No distance left. No room to hide. Stay with me, he said. Not rushed. Not forced. Register with me. My breath caught. Julian, I know what I'm asking. His grip tightened, just slightly. And I know what it means. His gaze flicked down, briefly, to my abdomen. Then back to me. I'll take responsibility. A beat. For both of you. My chest tightened hard enough to hurt. You don't have to do that. I want to. No hesitation. No doubt. I owe you my life. That's not the same thing. Maybe not. His expression softened. But this isn't just about that anymore. Silence. Then, I'm not leaving you here to face this alone. The words settled deep. Too deep. I searched his face, looking for hesitation, doubt, anything. There was none. Just certainty, warmth, and something else I wasn't ready to name. Okay, I said before I could stop myself. The moment the word left my mouth, something shifted in his expression, bright, immediate, real. Relief. Happiness. He pulled me forward before I could react, arms wrapping around me carefully, like he was afraid I might break. Okay, he repeated softly, almost like he didn't believe it. Then, without thinking, he pressed a quick kiss to my temple. Light, gentle, real. I stilled in his arms. Not pulling away. Not yet. His hand moved, hesitant this time, to rest lightly against my abdomen. Careful. Respectful. Hey, he said quietly, voice softer than I had ever heard it. Little one. A small breath. Then, with a faint smile, your other father doesn't know what he lost. His thumb brushed lightly against the fabric. But that's all right. His voice steadied. Stronger now. You've got me. A pause. Then, I'll take care of both of you. I didn't move. Couldn't. Because somewhere between the warmth of his arms and the certainty in his voice, I realized something I hadn't been ready to admit. This wasn't part of the system anymore. This was something else entirely. And I had just stepped into it. Julian didn't do things halfway. I learned that the next morning. All staff, attention. The announcement cut across the medical floor, sharp enough to pull every head up at once. I was halfway through prepping a tray when the room shifted, faster than usual this time. Not routine. Not normal. I turned. Julian stepped in. Not alone. 2 officers followed behind him, posture rigid, silent. That alone said enough. He didn't look at them. He didn't look at anyone else. His gaze found me immediately. Then he stopped, right in the center of the room. Effective immediately, he said, voice steady, carrying without effort. Nathaniel Price is under my protection. Silence dropped. Heavy. Absolute. I didn't move. Couldn't. He is my registered partner candidate. Julian continued, not breaking eye contact with me. And he is carrying my child. The words landed harder than anything else had. Not just on me. On everyone. A ripple moved through the room. Subtle, controlled, but there. Shock. Calculation. Reassessment. Status had just shifted. Completely. No one, Julian added, slower now, deliberate, touches him without authorization. A pause. No one speaks to him without respect. His gaze moved then, brief, precise, across the others. Enough to make the message clear. That includes you. No one answered. No one needed to. Medical supervision will be increased, he continued. Diet adjusted. Workload reduced. That got my attention. Julian. He looked back at me immediately. You'll still work, he said before I could continue. Just not like before. A small shift. Softer now. Not alone. I exhaled slowly. You didn't have to. I did. No hesitation. No room to argue. The doctor stepped in, breaking the moment. Understood, he said calmly. Not surprised. Not resistant. That told me more than anything else. This wasn't impulsive. This had already been accepted. Planned. Julian nodded once. Then, quieter. Make sure he's taken care of. Already happening, the doctor replied. That was it. The announcement ended. But nothing went back to normal after that. It couldn't. Because from that moment on, I wasn't just another Omega in the system. I was his. The change was immediate. Subtle, but undeniable. Food arrived on time, better than before. My shifts were shorter. Someone always nearby. Watching. Not monitoring. Protecting. No one spoke out of line anymore. Not where I could hear it. And Julian didn't leave me alone. Not really. If he wasn't there, something he sent was. If he wasn't speaking, he was watching. If he wasn't watching, he was finding a reason to come back. You're doing too much, he said one afternoon, catching my wrist before I could reach for another case. His grip was gentle. Always was now. I'm fine. You're stubborn. You noticed. The corner of his mouth lifted. I notice everything about you. I didn't answer. Couldn't. Not without giving something away. His gaze dropped, instinctively, to my abdomen. Larger now. No hiding it anymore. 8 months. The thought still didn't feel real. His hand hovered for a second, then rested lightly there. Careful. Always careful. He's stronger today, he murmured. You say that every day. Because it's true every day. A pause. Then, softer, just like you. I looked away. Again. But this time, I didn't pull back. That was the difference. Nights were quieter. Different. He didn't push. Didn't rush. But he stayed. Close enough to matter. You never answered me, he said once, voice low in the dim light. I didn't need to ask what he meant. About what? About us. Silence stretched. I stared at the ceiling. You said I didn't have to answer. You don't. A beat. I just hoped you would. I exhaled slowly. I'm still here, aren't I? That was the only answer I could give. He went quiet. Then, softly, yeah. A pause. Then closer, just enough. You are. And for now, that was enough for both of us. Until it wasn't. The transfer order came without warning. Labor reassignment, someone said, pushing a group forward. I was among them. Not alone. Never alone anymore. But still part of the system. We were moved through a lower corridor, Omega units assigned to field support. Routine. Controlled. Temporary. That was what they said. I didn't question it. I should have. The yard opened ahead. Wide. Exposed. Alphas moving in formation. Orders being shouted. Controlled chaos. I stood with the others, waiting for instruction. And then, something shifted. Not in the system. In the air. A presence. Familiar. Wrong. I felt it before I saw him. I turned. And there he was. Standing just beyond the line. Unchanged. And not. His gaze locked onto me instantly. Shock hit first. Clear. Undeniable. Then his eyes dropped. To my abdomen. The curve that couldn't be hidden anymore. His expression hardened. Fast. Sharp. His jaw tightened. And when he looked back at me, it wasn't confusion anymore. It was anger. Why are you here? His voice cut through everything else. I didn't answer. Couldn't. Not like this. Not here. His gaze didn't leave mine. Then, lower, dangerously controlled. Whose child is that? Silence fell around us. Heavy. Waiting. And for the first time since I entered this place, the past had finally caught up to me. The door slammed shut behind me. Hard. Final. I didn't turn immediately. I didn't need to. I could feel him there, closer than before. Too close. Explain. His voice cut through the room. No pretense. No control left. I faced him slowly. Sebastian hadn't changed. Not really. Still composed. Still sharp. But something was off. Cracked. Why are you here? He demanded. I issued a special exemption for you. His gaze moved over me. Quick, searching, then stopped. Lower. At my abdomen. His jaw tightened. Hard. And what is that? Silence. I held his gaze. Steady. Controlled. That doesn't concern you, sir. The word landed like a blade. His expression shifted instantly. Not calm anymore. Not controlled. Don't do that. Softer. More dangerous. Don't speak to me like I'm a stranger. I didn't answer. Because that's exactly what he was now. His gaze sharpened. Then answer me properly. A step closer. Too close. Whose child is that? I stayed silent. Or do you even know? The words hit harder than they should have. Not because of what they were. Because of who said them. I didn't react. I wouldn't give him that. You walk into a place like this, he continued, voice lower now, edged with something darker, carrying a child, and you expect me to believe this was planned. A pause. Then, or was it just a mistake? Something inside me tightened. Not anger. Not entirely. That doesn't concern you, sir, I repeated. This time colder. Final. The silence that followed was heavy. Unstable. He stared at me like he was trying to see through something. Something I wasn't showing him. Say his name. His voice dropped. Who is he? I didn't answer. Couldn't. Not here. Not like this. The air shifted before the door even opened. That's enough. Julian's voice cut through the tension, low, controlled, absolute. The door opened without permission. He stepped in without waiting to be called. His gaze went straight to me first. Quick. Checking. Then to Sebastian. You're done here, Julian said. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just certain. Sebastian didn't move. I wasn't finished. You are now. The words didn't rise. Didn't need to. Julian stepped forward, just enough to shift the space, to place himself between us without making it obvious. That child, he added, voice steady, is mine. The room went still. Completely. Sebastian's gaze snapped to him. Sharp. Disbelieving. Then back to me. Searching. I didn't move. Didn't confirm. Didn't deny. That was enough. I'll be taking my partner back, Julian continued. Calm. Official. With your permission, sir. The last word was deliberate, respectful, and completely controlled. A beat passed. Then another. Sebastian didn't answer. He just looked at me. Not anger anymore. Something worse. Something he didn't understand. Julian didn't wait. His hand found mine. Warm, steady, real. Come on, he said quietly. I didn't resist. Not this time. We walked out together. And for the first time since he appeared, I didn't look back. Not until the door closed. Not until the space between us and him was sealed. Even then, I could still feel his gaze. Following. Julian didn't speak until we were far enough away. Then his grip tightened slightly. That was him. Not a question. I hesitated. Then nodded. Yes. Silence. Then, the one who left you. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He exhaled slowly. Controlled. But not calm. Then he's exactly the kind of man I thought he was. I shook my head. It wasn't Nathaniel. His voice softened. Just enough. I stopped. Looked at him. Really looked. You don't have to defend him. That hit harder than anything Sebastian had said. I'm not, I said quietly. A pause. Then, the words didn't come. Not the right ones. You're scared, Julian said. Not accusing. Understanding. My chest tightened. Yes. Finally. The truth. Of what? His hand moved, slow, careful, resting lightly against my abdomen. That he'll take this away, I said. The words came out before I could stop them. That he'll find out, and I swallowed. And I'll lose everything. Silence. Then his hand shifted, covering mine. Holding it there. No, firm. Certain. I looked at him. He didn't look away. You won't. A beat. Not while I'm here. There was no hesitation in it. No doubt. Just promise. No one touches you, he added. No one takes what's yours. Something in my chest loosened, just slightly. Not gone, but quieter. You don't know that. I do. His voice dropped. Because I won't let them. I held his gaze for a second longer than I meant to. Then nodded. It wasn't trust. Not fully. But it was enough. For now. Behind us, far beyond the closed doors, Sebastian stood where we had left him. Unmoving. Silent. The room felt smaller now. Tighter. Wrong. His jaw clenched slowly. The words echoed back. That child is mine. It didn't make sense. It didn't fit. Something was off. He turned sharply. Pull the records, he said. Immediate. Cold. Controlled again, but only on the surface. All of them. The officer didn't question it. Data came quickly. Too quickly. Transfer logs. Clearance overrides. Assignment history. His eyes narrowed. This was altered. A pause. Then who authorized this? Silence. Then a name surfaced. His expression darkened instantly. Bring her in. The door opened again. She stepped inside like she belonged there. Of course she did. You called, she said lightly. Too lightly. Sebastian didn't answer right away. He just looked at her. Long enough for the tension to build. You changed the order. Not a question. Her smile didn't fade. I corrected it. You sent him there. That's where he belongs. The words landed without hesitation. Without shame. Something snapped. Fast. His hand moved before the thought fully formed. The sound echoed in the room. Sharp. Final. Her head turned with the impact. Silence followed. Heavy. Absolute. She didn't cry. Didn't step back. She just looked at him. Eyes bright now. Not with fear, but something sharper. You're still thinking about him, she said quietly. Even now. He didn't answer. That was answer enough. You stand here with me, she continued, voice tightening. But your mind is always somewhere else. A step forward. With that omega. The word cut. So yes, she added, almost bitter now. I fixed it. His jaw tightened. You don't get to decide that. I already did. Silence. Then he turned away. Not because he was done. Because if he stayed, it would get worse. Much worse. Check the timeline, he said instead. Low. Controlled again. Now. Data shifted again. Dates. Calculations. Records lining up one after another. His gaze froze. Just for a second. Then sharpened. 5 months. The number settled. Heavy. Unavoidable. His hand tightened at his side. No. But the math didn't lie. The timing didn't lie. The memory. He stopped. Completely. Because suddenly, everything made sense. And nothing did. His expression didn't just harden this time. It cracked. That child, his voice dropped. Almost inaudible. Is mine. And for the first time since he walked into that room, Sebastian understood exactly what he had lost. He came to me when I was alone. Of course he did. Nathaniel. I didn't turn immediately. I knew that voice too well. Even now. Even after everything. We need to talk. I kept my hands steady on the table in front of me. There's nothing to talk about, sir. A pause. Then footsteps. Closer. Slower this time. Don't call me that. I turned. Sebastian looked different. Not weaker. Never that. But stripped of something. Certainty, maybe. Then don't speak to me like I owe you anything. I replied. The words came out colder than I expected. He stopped a few steps away. His gaze moved over me. Searching, lingering, then settled. I was wrong. The words landed heavier than I thought they would. Not because I believed them. Because I hadn't expected to hear them at all. I shouldn't have left you like that. Silence stretched between us. You didn't just leave, I said quietly. You chose to. His jaw tightened. I didn't know. It doesn't matter what you didn't know. I cut him off before he could finish. It happened anyway. He exhaled slowly, like he was holding something back. Nathaniel, his voice dropped. Softer. Almost careful. Come back with me. I didn't react. Not immediately. You don't belong here. I belong exactly where I am. My answer came fast. Too fast to be anything but truth. He shook his head once. No, a step closer. You belong with me. Something in my chest tightened. Sharp, unwanted. You don't get to decide that anymore. Silence. Then, I can't marry you. The words were clean, direct, final. I didn't flinch. I didn't give him that. I know, I said. He stilled. That wasn't the answer he expected. But I can keep you safe, he continued quickly. Outside this system. Somewhere no one touches you. No one questions you. A pause. Then lower. You can stay with me. I understood then. Completely. As what? I asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. That was answer enough. Say it. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. His jaw clenched. As mine. The words hit. Harder than anything else had. Not as your wife, I said. Not as your equal. A step forward. Just something you keep on the side. That's not what that's exactly what you meant. My voice didn't shake. Even if everything else inside me did. You want me hidden. Controlled. Convenient. His expression shifted. Frustration. Guilt. Something else tangled together. I'm trying to protect you. No, I shook my head once. You're trying to protect yourself. Silence. Heavy. Then I stepped back. I won't let you humiliate me like that. I turned. I was done. His hand caught my wrist before I could take a second step. Not rough, but firm. Nathaniel, let go. Listen to me. Let go. The air changed. Instantly. You heard him. Julian's voice. Close. Too close. I didn't need to turn to know he was there. Sebastian's grip didn't loosen. If anything, it tightened slightly. This doesn't concern you, he said coldly. It concerns him. Julian stepped forward. Not rushed. Not hesitant. Just inevitable. So it concerns me. Sebastian finally released me. Only to step between us. The distance snapped. Tension coiled tight. You think you can take what's mine? Sebastian's voice dropped. Dangerous. You lost that right. Julian didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. The moment you walked away. Silence. Then it broke. Fast. No warning. No signal. Just impact. The force of it hit the room like a shockwave. They moved at the same time. Precision, instinct, power colliding without restraint. I staggered back, breath catching as the air thickened. Too much. Too strong. Their pheromones crashed into each other. Raw, unfiltered, overwhelming. My vision blurred instantly. My body reacted before I could stop it. Stop. The word barely left my mouth before everything dropped. Pain hit. Sharp, sudden wrong. Too early. Too soon. My hand went to my abdomen automatically. Something was wrong. Nathaniel, Julian's voice cut through it. Closer now. Panicked in a way I had never heard before. The world tilted. Voices blurred. Pressure. Movement. Then, nothing. Silence. When I woke, everything was quiet. Too quiet. The light was softer. Warmer. Not the harsh white of the facility. I blinked slowly. The ceiling wasn't familiar. Neither was the room. Not medical. Not controlled. Something else. Something comfortable. My body felt wrong. Weak. Empty. My breath caught. The baby alive. The voice came from beside me. Calm. Steady. I turned. Sebastian stood there. And in his arms, a small shape. Wrapped carefully. Breathing. Real. My chest tightened painfully. Give him to me. My voice was rough, but it didn't matter. I pushed myself up despite the strain. Give him to me. He didn't hesitate this time. He stepped forward, placing the child into my arms with a care I hadn't expected from him. I held him, carefully, instinctively, like I already knew how. Warm. Alive. Mine. My eyes stung. I didn't look at Sebastian. Where are we? Silence. Then, my residence. I froze. No, my voice dropped. Cold. No, I looked up at him finally. You took me. You needed care. You took me. The words landed harder this time. He didn't deny it. That was worse. How long? 3 days. The room tilted again. Julian, I started. His expression shifted slightly. He's alive, Sebastian said. He's not here. That didn't help. It made it worse. I tightened my hold on the baby. Take me back. Silence. Nathaniel, take me back. My voice didn't rise, but it didn't bend either. And release me. He stepped closer. Slower this time. Careful. Like I might break. Give me time. I didn't answer. I'm close, he continued. Everything I've been working toward. This is the final stage. His gaze locked onto mine. I can't break the engagement yet. The words were clear. Honest. Brutal. But I will fix this. I laughed. Quiet. Empty. You mean you'll hide it? His jaw tightened. I'll give you a place. Not a name. Silence. Not a future. A step closer. Not respect. My grip tightened protectively around the child. You're asking me to accept being nothing again. That's not. It is. I met his gaze fully now. No hesitation. No fear left. And I won't. The room went still. Completely. He looked at me like he didn't understand how he got here. Like he had lost something he hadn't realized he could lose. Nathaniel. My name sounded different in his voice now. Not command. Not control. Something closer to regret. Too late. I'm not yours to keep anymore. I shifted the baby slightly in my arms. Careful. Protective. And neither is he. Silence fell. Heavy. Final. And this time, I didn't look away. He didn't wait. That wasn't who he was. By the time Julian found the address, the anger had already settled into something colder. Sharper. Controlled. The gates opened slower than he liked. The estate beyond was quiet. Too quiet for a place holding something he refused to lose. State your purpose. The voice came from security. Formal. Detached. Julian didn't slow. I'm here for Nathaniel Price. A pause. Then, you'll need authorization. You can call it that. Julian cut in. His tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. Or you can explain to your superiors why you denied entry to the man whose family can shut this place down in a day. Silence. Not long. The gates opened. He stepped inside without looking back. The main hall was already prepared. Of course it was. They had time. Enough to anticipate him. Sebastian's parents sat at the far end, composed, unmoved, as if this were just another negotiation. Sebastian stood beside them. Still. Controlled. But not untouched. Not anymore. Julian stopped a few steps away. No bow. No formal greeting. Just presence. You took something that doesn't belong to you, he said. Direct. Clean. The room stilled. Careful. Sebastian's father replied, voice calm but edged. You're speaking in my house. Then I'll make it simple. Julian's gaze didn't leave them. You have my partner. And my child. A flicker, barely visible, passed across Sebastian's mother's expression. That's a serious claim, she said. It's a true one. No hesitation. Return them. Silence stretched. Measured. Calculated. You're asking us to interfere in internal family matters, the father said. Julian took a step forward. Not aggressive. Not hesitant. Just enough. I'm informing you, he corrected. Because if you don't, a pause. Then, colder, I will. His gaze sharpened. Every record. Every transfer. Every illegal override. Another step. Broadcasted. No emotion. Just fact. Public. The word landed heavier than anything else. That was the line. Reputation. Power. Image. Everything their world depended on. You wouldn't, Sebastian said finally. Julian looked at him. Not long. Not kindly. Try me. Silence fell again. Thicker this time. More dangerous. Then, slowly, Sebastian's father leaned back. Thinking. Calculating. Choosing. This isn't worth the damage, he said at last. Quiet. Final. Sebastian didn't move. Release them, his mother added. Not looking at her son. Looking at the outcome. That was all that mattered. Something in Sebastian's posture shifted. Small. But real. Understood, he said. The word sounded heavier than it should have. Julian didn't wait for more. He turned. Because the moment they agreed, this was already over. He found you where he expected you to be. Not hidden, not locked away, just kept. That made it worse. You looked up when the door opened. For a second, nothing moved. Then everything did. Julian, he crossed the room in 2 strides. Stopped just short of touching you, like he was making sure you were real first. I'm here, he said. Quiet. Not for anyone else. Just you. You nodded. That was enough. He reached out then. Careful, steady. Taking the baby first, checking, adjusting, then handing him back to you like it mattered more than anything else. It did. We're leaving, he added. No hesitation. You didn't argue. Not this time. Behind him, Sebastian stood in the doorway, watching, silent. You didn't look at him. Not once. And that was worse than anything else. The estate felt smaller as you walked out. Lighter too. Like something had already broken there. Something that wouldn't be fixed. Not now. Not ever. Outside, the air felt different. Real. For the first time in days, you could breathe. Julian didn't speak until you were far enough away. Until there was distance between you and everything that had almost trapped you there. Then, I'm sorry. The words came out quieter than you expected. You looked at him. He wasn't looking at you. Not yet. I should have gotten there sooner. You shook your head slightly. You came. That was what mattered. His gaze lifted then. Finally. I told them everything, he said. My family. A pause. Then, they know about you. About him. His eyes dropped briefly to the child in your arms. And they're not against it. You stilled. Not against it. A faint breath. Almost a smile. They're just trying to figure out why I disappeared before. They could even arrange a proper meeting. You blinked. You never told them? I left before they could ask, he admitted. Turns out they're not nearly as rigid as I thought. A pause. Then softer. They want to meet you. Something tightened in your chest. Not fear. Not exactly. And if I don't want to? His answer came immediately. Then we don't go. No hesitation. No pressure. Just choice. Given. Freely. You exhaled slowly. That felt unfamiliar. In the distance, far behind you, Sebastian remained where you left him. The house felt colder now. Quieter. Not empty. Just wrong. You're making a mistake, his father said at last. Sebastian didn't answer. Your position. Your future, I know. His voice was calm again. Controlled. Back where it always was. And you're still going through with it. A pause. Then yes. The word landed without hesitation. Heavy. Final. His mother didn't look at him. The engagement will proceed. Another pause. Of course it will. He turned away before they could see anything else. Because there was nothing left to show. Not here. Not anymore. And somewhere beyond the gates, you didn't look back. Not at the house. Not at him. Because this time, you didn't belong there. And for the first time since everything began, you were finally where you were meant to be. The house felt quieter after they left. Not empty. Just missing something that didn't belong to it anymore. Sebastian stood by the window long after the gates closed behind them. He didn't move. Didn't speak. He just watched the road where they had disappeared, like if he stayed long enough, something might change. It didn't. Of course it didn't. You've made your decision. His father's voice came from behind him. Calm. Controlled. Expected. Sebastian didn't turn. I have. Silence settled between them. Not strained. Just final. The engagement will proceed, his father added. It already has, Sebastian replied. The words came easily. Too easily. That was the problem. Everything came easily. The position. The promotions. The power. He had built it that way. Chosen it that way. Step by step. Calculation by calculation. There had never been room for anything else. Until there was. And he hadn't known what to do with it. You'll rise faster than anyone in your generation, his father continued. If you stay focused. Sebastian let out a quiet breath. I always do. That was true. It had always been true. Even now. Especially now. Because focus was the only thing he had left. The only thing that didn't slip through his hands when he reached for it. The door closed behind his father. The room went still again. Sebastian finally looked away from the window. The reflection staring back at him was steady. Composed. Unreadable. Just like it was supposed to be. Just like it had always been. But not the same. Not anymore. His gaze dropped. Just slightly. To where his hands rested at his sides. He flexed them once. Slowly. Like he was remembering something. A feeling. Warm. Small. Fragile. Gone. The memory came without warning. Not the moment he lost them. Not the argument. Not the words. But something quieter. Nathaniel's silence. The way he had looked at him. Not angry. Not desperate. Just done. That was what stayed. Not what he had said. What he hadn't. Sebastian closed his eyes briefly. Then opened them again. Controlled. Back in place. Pull the files, he said. The command carried across the empty room. Immediate. A moment later, the system responded. Records opened. Data scrolled. Transfer orders. Clearance levels. Omega assignments across outer systems. Patterns. Repetition. Abuse disguised as structure. He had seen it before. Of course he had. He just hadn't stopped it. Because it hadn't been his priority. Because it hadn't affected him. Because it hadn't been inconvenient enough. Until now. His jaw tightened slightly. Flag all low-tier colony protocols, he continued. Cross-reference labor deployment with survival rates. The system paused, then complied. Numbers filled the screen. Cold. Indisputable. Sebastian didn't look away this time. He studied them. Every line. Every gap. Every failure hidden behind acceptable loss margins. Submit a reform request, he said. Immediate review of Omega classification systems. A pause. Then, and revoke forced labor assignments under current statutes. The system hesitated. Not designed for this. Authorization required. Sebastian stepped closer. Override. Silence. Then, override accepted. The screen shifted. Policies unlocked. Editable. For the first time, open. He stared at it for a long moment. This wasn't redemption. It didn't erase anything. It didn't change what had already happened. But it was something. It was what he could do now. And that would have to be enough. His hand moved once across the interface, finalizing the request, sending it forward. The impact wouldn't be immediate. Nothing like this ever was. But it would start. And it wouldn't stop. Not anymore. Behind him, the house remained quiet. Controlled. Perfect. Exactly as it had always been. Exactly as it was supposed to be. Sebastian turned away from the screen. The reflection caught him again, briefly, before he passed it. Still composed. Still sharp. Still everything he had chosen to become. Just not everything he had wanted. Not anymore. Somewhere far beyond this place, you were alive. Safe. Not his. That was the part he didn't try to change. Not this time. Because some things, once lost, didn't come back. Not no matter how much power you had. Not no matter how much you wanted them to. Sebastian walked out of the room without looking back. The system moved with him now. Not around him. Not above him. With him. And for the first time, he used it for something that wasn't just himself.